Hello and welcome. Welcome to this beautiful morning today. It's nice and I wish it was snowing, but it is not. So we have an icy rain today, but it's a beautiful morning nevertheless, because every single day you wake up, you're healthy. It's a beautiful morning anyways, right? So we have to be thankful for that. Plus, it's also just around the corner for Christmas. So a very Merry Christmas to everyone who's celebrating, of course. And also this festivity, this vibe that is there in the air that just uplifts everybody, brings you joy, brings you happiness, brings you, or rather fills you with abundance of opportunity, positivity. That's what I was going to say. But we are here today talking about Canadian immigration, which at times seeps away all that positivity because of all the news that comes around. So far this week, there was something nice which happened. IRCC managed to conduct 4 in a row. We were hoping for a 5. I was really hoping for a 5 and 5. And then is in 5 days have 5 express entry draws? That would be awesome, right? But not to be. So we had only 4 draws. We're going to talk, of course, about them. What else is there, right, in Canadian immigration, if it's not for express entry? Hey, but you know what? For people who are in Dubai, there is great news because provinces are rushing to Dubai for recruitment events. We talked about the Newfoundland and Labrador recruitment event, okay, which is happening in January. I think the registrations are almost closed for that, because whenever we make a video, so many people watch it, so many people then obviously register for it. But today I'm going to talk to you about 2 other recruitment events which are also happening in Dubai in February. But these are for the healthcare profession. Of course, as I said earlier, we do need a lot of healthcare people in Canada, and this obviously is to target that. But not only that, with these recruitment events, the benefit that you have is that not only do you have an opportunity to, of course, get a job, but also that leads to your nomination, and from that to your permanent residence, which we know is quite difficult at this point of time. But that's what we're going to talk about today. And there is also a bit of an alarm. I wouldn't say alarming, but it's an article that I would talk to you about, which, nowadays that's how we come to find out about a lot of news anyways, right? Through articles, not through the horse's mouth, but through the articles. But I guess the real information will come to us when the horses are neighing. But for the time being, let's get started. We will start with our weekly roundup. We'll talk about that. We will cover whatever provincial nominee draws that have happened. We'll talk about express entry. We will talk about these recruitment events. And then we will talk to you about this article that I have a bit of concern about. Not really sure how that unravels and how that unfolds when we go into 2024. But that's what we do. We will talk about it, right? Starting with our presentation, quote of the week: every accomplishment starts with the decision to try. And John F. Kennedy. And such a great quote, but yet each day, as I do so many consultations, each day I meet with people, I talk to people who are still on the fence thinking, should they create an express entry profile? Should they try? Should they retake their language score, IELTS or CELPIP? Should they call the employer? Should they change the province? Should they make a profile in a different province? Should they apply for a visit visa? Should they apply for an open work permit if it is applicable to them? So it's always that should I? And they're always thinking, they're always contemplating. And though research is extremely important, finding out what you need to do is extremely important, but you gotta try. And if you're still thinking, maybe I will do it, I'm not sure, my friends are doing it, they are not telling me to do it, my relatives are not saying that. And of course, we have our social media influencers, because for some reason, everybody who's an international student, I'm sorry, my apologies, not everybody, most of the international students, most of the new immigrants in Canada, most, right? It has now become a step in the process that when you arrive in Canada, you must create your YouTube channel, you must create your Instagram account, and you must post. You must post about immigration, you must post about life in Canada, you must go to Dollarama, you must go to the grocery stores, you must post the prices, and you must, absolutely talk about the rent situation, and you must talk about the cost of living and the taxes, etc. And obviously say what a bad move it is to come to Canada. You guys don't come to Canada. I am here in Canada. I am happy. Maybe I will return back to my home country, but you guys don't come to Canada because it's so difficult here. So when you hear all of that, and of course, all of that results in a lot of negativity, which spreads around. But hey, think about it, right? For any country, Can they be perfect? Can any country be perfect? Can whichever country you are in? So the reason you're choosing to move to a different country, whether to study, to work, to immigrate, to whatever that might be, is because whatever the circumstances are in your current situation, wherever you might be, I'm not saying you're not happy, you're not this thing, but whatever the circumstances are, they are prompting you to look for something different. Something different does not always mean something better, but something different. That something different could then trigger a chain of events, which could mean better prospects, job, life, work-life balance, nature, clean air, clean water, better life for the children, better upbringing in the sense of the kind of values that you can instill, sometimes intolerance, not being inclusive, so many different factors, right? But every accomplishment, whatever you want to accomplish, will have to start if you are going to give it a try. And if you were to get influenced and do not do your own research, do not take that specific shot at it, then years later you would be regretting and saying, should have done that, right? And that's the reason you have to take that shot. Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup, starting with the PNPs. What do we have? I don't think we had a lot of PNP draws. I think we only had British Columbia. Yeah, we only had British Columbia on the 19th of December. BC invited 230 candidates through the targeted draws in childcare, healthcare, construction, tech occupations under the skilled worker and the international graduate streams. They invited, as I said, 230 candidates with the minimum score being 75 for the construction, 95 for tech, 60 for childcare and healthcare. Again, just to remind everybody, you need a job offer from the eligible employer in British Columbia in any of these streams. The only stream where you don't need a job offer is the international postgraduate stream. And of course, there was express entry, right? I mean, this is what really, this really shook the ground, rocked the boat, whatever you want to call it. On the 18th of December, which was a Monday, out of the blues. I mean, usually we don't expect a draw on Mondays. I can't remember too many Mondays when IRCC may have conducted a draw. So it was an absolute pleasant surprise to see a draw. And this was a general draw. So now IRCC has, instead of calling it an no program specified draw, IRCC now calls it a general draw, which is okay. It sort of clarifies, or it sort of matches with the nomenclature that most of the people have for the draws anyway. So it's a general draw. Now, what does a general draw mean? General draw basically means all programs, all categories have been invited, right? However, this particular draw invited only 1,325 candidates. And if I show you this, so if you, 1,325 candidates were invited, which basically means they were just trying to invite, or rather, they were just trying to issue enough invitations to cover the PNPs. Now, I've said this many times before, and if you're watching, you obviously know this already, that IRCC is under obligation to the provinces. So provincial nominee programs link their nominations. A lot of their streams and nominations are linked to the express entry. And the idea is to give people 600 points so that they can get their nomination. So IRCC must conduct the draws, otherwise the nominations do not mean anything. So under this obligation, IRCC did conduct a draw, and they did invite 1,325 people. But the main criteria was to clear this, because if the main criteria was to clear these numbers, then they would have conducted a larger draw. But it doesn't seem so. It seems that this was just, this is what was being done. So they invited 1,325 people. Not entirely bad, because at least there is a draw. Like, I mean, this is what has happened right now. Nowadays, just because there is a draw, we are happy. This is what IRCC has made us to believe now. The score was a very high of 542, of course. I mean, because mainly the PNPs were cleared, and some very few candidates from the general category, in the sense like people who did not have nominations, those are also cleared for a score of 542. Then what happened is, day number 2, which is Tuesday, on the 19th of December, IRCC had a back-to-back draw, express entry draw, but this time it was category specific, and this was expected. The minute at the start of the week, if IRCC is conducting an express entry draw, then you're pretty much pumped up and expecting that there should be a category-based draw, and that's what happened. They had a trade category draw. inviting 1,000 candidates to apply for permanent residence. Again, pretty cool, right? Because the score was 425. The previous draw happened a few months back. I think it was August or September, if I'm not wrong. Then also they had invited candidates, and there was also a score of 425. So the scores remained the same. They've invited another 1,000 people. 1,000 people, pretty good. Mainly, one of the biggest categories that got in, rather the big group of people that are in this particular NOC codes or trade categories were your carpenters, plumbers, electricians, welders, and there are some others as well. Of course, there are about 10 NOC codes that were included here. So was this 425 last? No, that was a different category. I'm just trying to pull up when was the last draw that happened here. Okay, so these were the last draws. Last trade draw was here in August, as I was saying. Oh, and the score was not 425. My bad. It is for the transport category where I mixed up with. So last time the score was 388 because they actually invited 1,500 people. Now, when they chose to invite only 1,000 people in the current draw, the scores are on the higher side at 425. Then what happened? Then what happened was that on the very next day, again, the following day, December 20th, now this is third draw in the week, on Wednesday, they invited, it says 6,700, my apologies, it's 670. My editor needs to should not get the Christmas bonus. So Adnan, if you're watching, these kind of mistakes are not acceptable. They invited a total of 670 candidates, and the score was a 435. Now, again, if I go back to the number of draws that had happened earlier, the transport category draw had happened on 20th of September. 1,000 people were invited, and 435 was the score. So again, this time, 670 have been invited, and score was 435. It almost seems that they wanted to keep the score at 435. So they could have invited 700 people, they could have invited 750 people, they could have invited again 1,000 people, but they chose to invite only 670. So the 670 seemed a bit odd to me. It was as if it was a deliberate move to keep the score at 435. Now 435, and in this transport occupations, there are not a lot of categories. I think about 10 categories come into transport occupations, or do they? Keep forgetting. But one of the biggest one here is the truck drivers, and there has been so much of talk about the truck drivers occupation, because earlier in the year they announced the list of certificate of qualification. They first said truck drivers would be eligible. A lot of people then applied in Express Entry, claiming 50 points for certificate of qualification through their MELT program in Ontario. And then they made the clarification that truck drivers were not eligible for the certificate of qualification. There's a lot of confusion there. However, 435 for truck drivers, I won't say it's a brilliant score, but it still gives them a bit of a respite there. And then what happened is that they again conducted a draw on 21st of December, which was a Thursday. And this time they invited 400 candidates with the agriculture and agri-food occupations. There are only 3 NOC codes there, one of them being a butcher. And this time the score was a low of 386. Now, last time they invited agri-food was in September as well, right? In September also they invited agri-food. That time they invited 600 candidates, and the score was of 354. This time they chose to invite only 400. So for the whole year, they have now invited 1,000 people under this category. The score was 386, which is the last Express Entry draw, which happened this week on Thursday. Now, really pumped up, hoping and thinking that Friday would be another draw, because 5 and 5, maybe IRCC wanted to absolutely make a big bang and say, okay, hey, Express Entry, we are really finishing off the year with so many invitations, so many draws, etc., but not to be. So there was no draw on Friday. I thought maybe you would see a healthcare draw, probably, but no, didn't see that. But then again, healthcare draw did happen, with a big number, 3,600 in October, not too far back. And there have been multiple healthcare draws this year anyways. So yeah, it's not too bad on the healthcare side. The last score for healthcare has been 431. So with 3,600 invitations. Now, STEM category also has been covered in the sense like they did, invite 5,900 candidates. Previously, they had invited 500. So 6,400 specifically invited under the STEM category. So they pretty much have also covered that. Technically, if you actually see the way things have happened, they have pretty much covered all the categories, right? The French proficiency category, they have invited several candidates throughout the year, ever since the category-based draw started in July. STEM, earlier we did not see much activity, but thankfully they did make a draw, and they conducted a big draw, which basically helped a lot of people who were stuck in that. After that, they have already drawn a couple of times now. Trade occupations twice, healthcare, as I said, multiple times, agriculture and food multiple times, a couple of times, twice, and then the transport category twice. So all categories have been taken into consideration. They have conducted draws for all categories, taking into account what their expected or anticipated quotas for invitations for this year was. Now, I know a lot of you get confused with the quotas of these draws, right? Because there was a Globe and Mail article which said STEM category would have 32% of the invitations. Well, the article was correct, and the number of 32% average, because we do not know the exact number as of right now. Only next year when the data is released, we will know. But they did not say 32% of the ITAs of the category based draws. They said of the total ITAs, 32% will probably go to STEM. Now, when we say of the total ITAs, the total ITAs this year is more than 107,000, much more. I was thinking, based on the number of people of the quotas, that you would have no more than 80,000 invitations. So I was absolutely wrong there in terms of thinking how many invitations they will issue. They have gone out and issued 107,000. Actually, the number is more. I don't remember the exact as per the last count, but they have gone out and invited more than 107,000 candidates in the Express Entry Pool. So out of this 107,000, when you say 32%, it's roughly 34,000 people who have been invited, or 34,000 profiles that have been invited are from STEM categories. Now, when you say 34,000, but only the ITAs were issued were only 6,400, again, we are not referring to only the category-based draws. We are referring to total invitations. Throughout the year, everybody has been receiving invitations, right? So they are saying out of this, total of 32 to 34% actually has gone out to the STEM categories, right? That's what they're talking about. They're not saying that they will issue category-based draws and that would be 34%. That is not what they're saying. Total invitations out of 107,000, the number of invitations that have gone out to STEM categories is roughly 34,000. That's what they're saying. And in my opinion, I'm absolutely certain that it actually is true. And that's what the number is. And therefore, there is no, they're absolutely fine with doing what they've done. At the end of the day, they have to cover a broad spectrum of different occupations. It's not only STEM. And with the way things are going in Canada, healthcare, trade, skilled trade, construction trades, those are continuing to be in high demand. And we expect that they will also, IRCC will continue to sort of make some big changes in there. I'm just trying to look for something that Mark Miller had said recently. Give me a moment, please. So that I can talk to you about that as well while we are discussing that. Yes, found it. Right, so this basically was the Express Entry, and let's move on. So in this week itself, they have conducted, now so you see, this is the trick that has happened. In December itself, now they have conducted quite a few draws. They conducted within December itself. Now they have already invited 4, 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. There are some more. Oh, if you actually see all the draws that have been conducted, they have almost invited 13, 14,000 people just this month. in December itself. Now, obviously, we know there was a big gap of the express entry. Almost for 2 months, we did not see any draws happening. So, but this month itself, they have invited nearly 14. Actually, it's more than 14,000. I'm just doing a very rough calculation. Roughly 14,000 people have been invited only in this month. So they have pretty much balanced out. And as I said, throughout the year, they have invited roughly 107,000 people, or actually more than 107,000. So that also pretty much tells you that the number of invitations from IRCC has not reduced. It actually is more than what I was thinking that they would, based on the number of quotas that they have. In other news, well, this no more postgraduate work permit extension caught a lot of fire. It has come under a lot of heat from both sides, right? From the international students who were hoping, expecting. Some of them were absolutely expecting this was going to happen, because they were hoping that this, not hoping, they were expecting this was going to happen. They thought it was they were almost taking it for granted, and now it's a rude awakening that postgraduate work permits are not going to be extended. And last minute, people are now frantically looking for options. Now, if you're looking for options just 1 month before the expiry of your work permit, it's going to get very, very difficult, because you guys are competing with a huge number of people out there. So it's going to get very, very tricky. In most cases, even if you're looking for PNP options, most PNPs are employer driven. And when I'm saying employer driven, means you need a support of an employer. Either you need a PNP, or you need a job approval letter, or you need a job offer letter, or it has to be from an eligible employer who can support your application for PNP. Without job offer letter, without employer support, unfortunately, it's not really there are not too many options out there. But what I'm talking about is that this no more postgraduate work permit extension, it is linked with the latest news that was announced by Mark Miller. And what am I talking to you about? What I'm talking to you about is this. This is the most recent article, which actually was published just 2 hours back. Okay, it was updated. It was published just 2 hours back, and it says immigration minister to rein in number of temporary foreign workers coming into Canada in 2024. Now, here it says temporary foreign workers, but by and large, we all know that international students also apply for work permits. So how will you rein the number of temporary foreign workers coming to Canada? Either you are going to stop or rather you're going to limit the number of LMIA applications. That is one way of doing it. You're going to get more stricter with the work permit issuance. Again, that is also a bit distinct. This article, to be very honest, is contradicting a lot of things. Now, in Canada, a lot of companies need labor, skilled labor. They need manpower. They don't have it. They can't find it. And I'm not talking about Toronto and Vancouver or the main urban cities. I'm talking about slightly the minute you get away from these cities. They do need people. They are not able to find skilled workers. They're not able to find trade categories. They're not able to find construction workers. In a lot of manufacturing industries, they cannot find skilled workers, right? Healthcare is a big issue. They cannot find enough workers over there. These employers genuinely, we are talking about genuine employers apply for genuine LMIAs to get genuine workers who can then come to work in Canada. So when he says they're going to rein in the number of temporary foreign workers, I'm not sure, are they talking about these genuine workers, or are they talking about doing something different in terms of targeting employers who may not have a genuine requirement but have been using that as an opportunity to, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? We're talking about these LMIA businesses that are absolutely rampant. Now, in the article, he says that there is a direct correlation between the influx of international students and temporary workers and the housing shortage in the country. So the headline said temporary foreign workers, but as you read the article, it tells you that there is the concern has been directly indicated with the international students and the temporary foreign workers. And he said he plans to control the number of temporary foreign workers coming to Canada in the new year, adding that the system has run a bit rampant. Further, as I take you down, it says he is planning to announce reforms to tackle the influx at the start of 2024. Okay, so we still obviously have to wait and see what do they mean by this specific reform. Obviously, 2024 may not start with a very, very good news in this aspect. Already, as far as the international students are concerned, there is already the announcement that the requirement to show funds to take care of your living expenses has been increased, has been doubled. Yeah, doubled, more than doubled, effective 1st of January. So until 1st of January, you're required to show 10,000 Canadian dollars for one person for your living expenses. Now it has been linked to LICO, which is low income cutoff. So 75% of LICO is what you need to show in order to show that you can meet your living expenses. That number for one person has gone to 20,635. For two people, it's about 25,000. For three, it's gone to 30. And so on and so forth. So if you're a family of four, you will be required to show nearly $35,000, which is a lot of money. That is just to show for living expenses for 1 year. So that is one way of trying to, curtail and see if, you can limit the number of people who are coming to Canada in terms of as an international student, because the more difficult you make it for them, then less number of people qualify. The social media has not been kind to all the aspirants, because a lot of people who make these negative social media videos trying to tell people don't come to Canada, that obviously does impact a lot of you out there, right? And then you start rethinking, maybe I don't want to go to Canada, maybe I will explore a different country. Then again, in different countries, you have Australia, New Zealand, Denmark, Germany, France, England, US, Ireland, Portugal, and to certain extent, certain other Eastern European countries. But out of all these countries that I've just named, there are handful, or not even handful of countries that do have a structured program that can possibly lead you to a pathway for permanent residence. For all the others, there is nothing else there, right? So again, as an international student, you should conduct your detailed research and know what you're doing. But with this coming in, I can anticipate that there will be more criterias and conditions as far as international students are concerned, as far as the DLIs are concerned, designated learning institutions are concerned, as to what kind of designated learning institutions who would be able to get international students to come to Canada. I expect to see more and stringent regulations for the LMIA applications. And by that, people who are applying for work permits based on LMIA applications, I also see that more conditions and requirements might be placed upon them to prove that this is a genuine requirement that they need to do. But this is going to be interesting to see what exactly they have in store. These reforms, whatever the reforms are, they obviously are only meant to reduce the number. Now, for people who do not know, at this point of time, there are more than 2.5 million people in Canada who are temporary residents. I'm saying more, not less, not 2.5. There are more than 2.5 million people. Rather, over the last few months, 6 months, now, a few months back, Canada announced that they have touched the landmark of 40 million people as population, right? So it took them a long time to get to 40 million mark to say this is the population of Canada. But within the last 4 to 5 months itself, they have further added 430,000 people into the population, which is huge, right? Considering that it took you such a long time to reach 40 million. And within the last few months itself, the number has grown by 400,000 people, which is a lot, right? And alarming at the same point of time. And you can imagine, considering that the elections for Liberals, not just for Liberals, but elections in Canada are just around the corner, about a year to go. And Liberals have lost favor within the public. They are now doing everything to sort of have at least some favor back from the public, where as of right now, people are quite worried, quite concerned about the housing and inflation in Canada. And everybody has been targeting the temporary residents, which is your foreign workers and more so international students. A lot of news that international students have made in the recent times has also not been favorable from different aspects that go into certain cities near Toronto GTA, where they've got into some scuffles in a huge, big numbers. There have also been issues of the tent cities coming up in Toronto and the areas around it, whereby some international students were seen living in a tent on a street because they said they either could not afford the rent or they could not find a house. Places like Nova Scotia also have been reporting similar situation with some of the universities where international students just cannot find accommodation. Apart from that, there have been cases of fake acceptance letters, fake IELTS reports, fake documentation, fake employment documentation, all of this in combination. And of course, all these scrupulous agents who keep selling the whole pathway as a guaranteed pathway. And based on that, selling the international students the education dream. All of that, the mess that has made has all brought bad international students to bad light, and unfortunately has also then impacted the actual genuine students who really wanted to make something out of this pathway. Collectively, again, as I said, something which we have to keep an eye on and see what happens next year. But talking on the same lines of the international students, and no, not this one. This was another news that happened, which hasn't got a lot of favor amongst the people, is that Ottawa, Canada plans to create a citizenship pathway for undocumented workers. Now, when you say undocumented workers, it obviously means people who are currently in Canada, who are undocumented, who basically have lost their status, are currently illegal. But wouldn't this then encourage more people to become illegal? Because if once Canada announces an amnesty like that and says, okay, if you are an undocumented person in Canada, I will give you a pathway to become PR, what message does it send to hundreds and thousands of other students and workers who are currently in Canada, struggling to find a pathway because of high CRS scores, high CRS scores, or lack of pathways, or not being able to find employers who can support them or give them LMIAs or whatever that might be? What message are you sending to those people? These people who are in Canada, they have spent hundreds and thousands of dollars in terms of education, and then have worked hard in all kinds of jobs, just trying to make sure that they can get the required work experience, whether it is for express entry or for the PNP. And now, at the end of the road, they are being told, hey, your postgraduate work permit cannot be extended, because we don't want to extend it, of course. That is their prerogative, of course. But at the same point of time, because of this high CRS scores, obviously you have no pathway, so please go back home. But you know what? If you are illegal in Canada, we have a pathway for you. What message does it send to those people? I understand that of the people who are undocumented, and the number is huge, it is anticipated that there are more than 500,000 people in Canada. I think the number is close to 1 million, but then I do not have a confirmation on that number, so I cannot say that. As for the confirmed numbers, it's about 600,000. As I said, I still don't believe that number. I think it's close to 1 million, but let's go with the official number. So approximately 600,000 people are undocumented, are illegal in Canada, and they've been in Canada illegally, living here for several years, to the extent they are now part of the workforce. They're working here, the children are going to school, they're here. And some of them I can absolutely understand. I can absolutely imagine that they must have had some very difficult situations, difficult circumstances, which made them, become an undocumented person living like an illegal in a country. And obviously living under fear that, you can get caught, you can get deported, you can get thrown out, all of that. That kind of stress level is never good for anybody, anywhere in the world. So imagine living under that. But the minute the government acknowledges that we have undocumented workers and we are now going to give them a pathway, that sends a very wrong message to 2.5 million people who are in Canada, temporary residents, who are now looking to find pathways to become PR, but are just not able to. High CRS score, lack of employers, lack of opportunities, lack of pathways. I'm not sure how they're going to tackle this. I'm not sure how they're going to identify this, but anything of this sort, which is not clearly identified as a specific pathway for very specific kind of undocumented people, is going to send a huge, will create huge ripple effect. And I don't think that is in Canada's favor either. So next year, 2024, as in how Mark Miller tries to waddle around trying to figure out things and ways to do so that he can now, instead of increasing and improving the programs, reduce or restrict the programs, the international students, the temporary foreign workers, something to do with undocumented workers. Obviously, there is the number of PR pathways or quotas have already been stable, so there is no increase going into 2026. With all these, 2024 is looking like a bit of a tough year ahead. Obviously, we will come to know more about these criterias, these conditions, these programs, as and how they happen. But at this point of time, look like that it's not looking very promising for the international students. And if you are an international student, and this is what I would like to tell you, then absolutely, please have a good pathway ready, have a good plan ready. Do your research, identify what you need to do. If your study in Canada is giving you that essential CRS score, and if that extra 1 year of work experience will give you that essential critical CRS score points that you need in order to cross 500, then absolutely this should be the way to go. But for people who have just completed their schooling in India and are looking to come to Canada just to do a diploma after your schooling, this is absolutely not recommended, not suggested, because you will have a very difficult pathway. Please do not come to Canada immediately after your schooling. Complete your graduation, complete your undergrad, get your bachelor's degree, get work experience in India. And then if you want to come to Canada for further studies, then do it. You will still find a pathway. There are good pathways to become permanent resident. But agents who are selling to the international students the program which says that complete your schooling, come to Canada, do a 2-year diploma, and then have possible pathways, those are the ones who are the most impacted and most affected by this. So please be careful. Please watch out. Please do your research. Please understand the programs. Please know the ground reality, especially in terms of the program, before you sign up for any of this. That's pretty much all that we have for today's update. Connect with us on social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, of course, YouTube, Threads, TikTok. We're there everywhere, almost everywhere. And don't forget to subscribe, absolutely follow. And I do have more details to share with you about the upcoming recruitment events. Now, 2 provinces that are conducting their recruitment events in Dubai next year, which is 2024, in February, are New Brunswick and Prince Edward Islands. Now, the links for both these recruitment events are in the description box. Please take a look at it. And if you are in Dubai, if you are in healthcare, then this may be a great, and I would say not short of a golden opportunity, because if you're qualified, if you get called, you will have an opportunity to work with an employer directly. So you will have a job, you land a job directly. Not only that, you will also have an opportunity to apply for permanent residence, which I know most of us are struggling in terms of points, CRS, employment offers, fake agents, illegal, and Dubai is filled with these agents, right, who are trying to sell you all kinds of dreams with absolutely nothing there to back it up. So please be careful. And when you are signing up for these programs, or rather this recruitment events, the one here is Brunswick, and then the another one is from the Prince Edward Islands, right here. Prince Edward Islands is here, and Brunswick is here, of course. So yes, please sign up for actually both of them. There's also Newfoundland and Labrador. Let me see if I can find the Newfoundland and Labrador. We did talk about this earlier, Newfoundland and Labrador as well. They do have recruitment events happening in the Middle East and South Asia. This is happening. You may be able to still register for this if you haven't registered. By all means do. It is happening on 24th of January. You can still register. This is happening in the Middle East and South Asia. So please, by all means, do register for this one as well. So you now have almost 3 recruitment events, all of them targeting the Middle East. This one is a virtual, so you don't have to go anywhere. But as far as the New Brunswick is concerned, and as far as the Prince Edward Island is concerned, it does not indicate virtual. So it could actually be a physical event whereby once you have registered and if everything is good, you may get invited. They will call you. They will send you an email. They will ask you to appear at a specific location in Dubai, so that you could then meet the employers, you could talk to the provincial officers, and gain more information. And if you are selected, then you obviously have the option of applying for PR as well. So again, great opportunity. But again, keep in mind, I know there was an article in one of the newspapers in Dubai, and obviously also promoted by an agent in Dubai. But that one talks about that Dubai wants all kinds of categories, all kinds of skill sets. Misleading. This is where you have to be very careful and avoid such misleading articles or misleading information that is being promoted by agents. Always refer to the official government website, in this case New Brunswick, Prince Edward Islands, and Newfoundland. Here they have said very clearly that this recruitment mission is only for healthcare, right? They did not say all sectors. Now you see, this year, in March 2023, they did conduct a recruitment mission as well. Here they said all sectors. They were very clear. This time they are saying only healthcare. So when you will click on sign up, and when you do come to the sign up page, it will give you different occupations. But that does not mean that they want all these occupations. They are still looking at only healthcare at this point of time. So you are still able to create your profile. You can still register your interest on this website. However, please be aware that at this point of time, the priority is for healthcare. However, if you were to check the New Brunswick event, now in the New Brunswick event, the earlier one I showed you was for Prince Edward Island. In the New Brunswick event, this also says Canadian healthcare. Okay, so this is a recruitment mission for healthcare. And if you click on sign up, in New Brunswick's case, they very clearly tell you which NOC codes or which occupations they are absolutely interested in. So they have automatically told you these are the occupations that they are most interested in. So if you have work experience in these occupations, then you would be able to apply. And if you are able to apply, and once they do shortlist your application and shortlist your profile, you should hear back from them. And then by that, you should be able to attend the recruitment mission, recruitment fair, and hopefully find a job offer. Overall, a great opportunity. Don't let go of this one. If you are in Dubai or anywhere around in Dubai and are able to attend this, by all means register. I don't see any harm in registering. You can always register. If you get invited, then consider that as a golden ticket. It is as good as winning a, what Dubai people know as Mashreq Millionaire, right? You get a ticket, just absolutely go for it. Right, time for questions. And starting with the super chats. My current company is not providing reference letter for previously held roles and responsibilities on letterhead. Manager is fine with writing and signing all responsibilities on normal paper. What can I do? Well, this is a very frequently asked question, and we have covered this so many different times. Under the normal circumstances, for your employment, you are required to provide proof that you are working for that company. So in terms of proof for the company, working for the company, there are three different factors that you absolutely have to cover. First one is your period of work. From which date to which time were you working? How many hours per week were you working? Because this establishes your full-time work experience. Second is your payment. How much salary were you receiving? And you have to provide proof of being paid. And third and most critical is your NOC code. And the NOC code is established by your job description. So this proof that you're providing for your work experience has to include your work experience in terms of job description. Only that is the way that IRCC is going to validate and verify your NOC code. And obviously you understand, right? NOC code is extremely important in your application. If your employer is unwilling to provide you with this documentation, what you should first do is write them an email. So officially ask them for the document. In most cases, they will give you a document, which probably is called as a service letter, which says that this person is working for our company from this period up to this period of time. That's it. Nothing else is mentioned. And in some cases, they will very categorically and clearly tell you, we cannot provide you with this letter. Our company policy does not allow. In that case, by all means, approach your manager and ask your manager to give it in writing, and then get it notarized. Now, getting the document notarized is not a legal requirement. Getting a letter from the manager is also not a legal requirement. We are just providing alternatives. Okay, we're telling IRCC that, hey, I tried to get the document, the company did not provide it to me, but I'm still showing it to you that I've done this job because my manager has given it to you in writing, and my manager is working or was working for this company, because the manager will write it that while I was working for this company, or I'm manager in this company, this person is reporting to me. Very important. You cannot take these kind of letters from your colleagues. You cannot take from your peers. You cannot take this letter from your person who is reporting to you. but these are only taken from your supervisor or a manager who you were reporting to, or a team lead who you were reporting to, and then get the document notarized. Now, as I said, notary is not a mandatory requirement. The only reason we indicate, or rather we specify that get it notarized, is because it provides more credibility to that document. In the Canadian law, in the Canadian system, a notarized document has much more weight than an unnotarized document. So therefore, the requirement or the the idea that you should get it notarized is there, and this will help you claim your work experience. Now, of course, for your proof of payment, for your proof of salary, make sure you provide pay stubs, bank statements that show salary credit, income tax returns if you have them, or any other proof that indicates that you were paid during that period of time. All of that in collectivity, all of that in its entirety will be able, you will be able to claim your points for your work experience. Hundreds and hundreds and actually thousands of people have done it. They've all got their points. They've all got their applications approved. So you shouldn't worry about it. I am a Canadian resident. I got USA PCC in Niagara and returned to Canada on the same day after that. I have not traveled to US. Can I use this USA PCC or do I need to get one in Canada? How did you get a USA PCC in Niagara? So I'm not able to understand that, because usually the PCC is issued by FBI and it usually comes to you by mail, right? Or it comes to you by email. So the idea is, for any country that is not your country of residence, you should have obtained the police clearance from outside that country. And the reason why I keep saying this, and I keep re-emphasizing on this, is that your police clearance should always cover the entire duration of your stay in that country. Because for any period of time that you have obtained the PCC and you have, there are period of time which is not covered, it basically means you could have, done something naughty there and the PCC doesn't cover it. So therefore, it is it's your responsibility to provide a police clearance which covers your entire duration of stay. And therefore, you should always apply for a PCC after you have left that country, if it is not your country of residence. From the country of your residence where you currently reside, the police clearance is valid for 6 months from the date of issue, unless otherwise specified on the PCC itself. On West report, different name differs statement affidavit needed. Well, if there is a difference in your name, or if you have ever used different variations of your name, there are initials in your name which have been expanded in your West report or your education documents or your work documents or your pay stubs or your bank statements, or any kind of variation of your name, and you are anxious about it, you're concerned. Two things: you can either provide an explanation if it is just expansion of your initials, right? That's not a big deal. Or if you're still very concerned because people on social media really, create this stress and anxiety, then by all means provide a one and same person affidavit, which will include the variations of your name, and under a sworn oath, you stating that these are all your names and you are the person, and this is your actual legal name, which you are going by as indicated by your documents of identity, like your passport. So you can absolutely use that affidavit and use it in your application. I have a nomination from Ontario. Can I and wife apply for bridge open work permit with that? PGWP expires on 6 Jan and wife's work permit expires on the same day. A nomination does not give you the provision to apply for an open work permit. So the only way you can apply for an open work permit is because you have to understand this. Nomination is being given to you by the province. Work permit is given to you by the federal IRCC. Two different departments, two different sections, two different entities of the government. A nomination from Ontario just allows you to apply for PR. That's it. That's all it means. Nothing else. And giving you the PR, again, is the responsibility of the federal government, and they have to do their own checks, inadmissibility checks, and only then, once they're satisfied, do they give you the PR. So giving you a nomination means absolutely nothing until you've applied for PR. Applying for bridge open work permit, for that you need to be in Canada, and you need to have applied for PR and have received acknowledgement of receipt from IRCC. So not only do you need to get an ITA, not only do you need to apply for your PR, you also need to have your AOR. Only once you have your AOR, then you apply for bridge open work permit. And at that point of time, if you're applying for your wife's spouse open work permit along with your bridge open work permit, you can do that. But in your wife's application, please make sure that you add your employment letters with the job description and the most 3 recent pay stubs. This is the condition and requirement. Parth says 2.9 years, India not be. I'm not able to understand. So please, when you're putting your question, please provide more details. I can't understand. But if you're asking me how to get qualified, I don't know how to get qualified. In your case, all you need to do is please go onto the IRCC website, check the CRS calculator. And if you haven't created your Express Entry profile, then by all means do. That will give you your CRS score. If your CRS score is high enough, then you probably will get drawn. If your CRS score is not high enough, then you should try to improve your CRS score. If otherwise your NOC code is something which is considered as a priority occupation, then you can also check and look at the category-based draws and see if you can get invited in that. But for all of this, this is something which you need to research. On postgraduate work permit, I have submitted my PR application with LMIA and have started working for same employer. Employer has changed his address, which is different from the one on my LMIA. Anything to do? No, absolutely nothing to do. It's absolutely fine. There is no issue. Nothing for you to do. You already submitted your You have already submitted your PR application. You have the LMIA. You're already working for the employer. The employer has changed the address. That is not a problem. Don't worry about it. I got ITA in transport occupation draw. My wife is expecting baby in 2 weeks. Congratulations. So what should I do now? Submit my documents or wait for the baby and get all the documents and submit together? Well, first of all, you are expecting a baby in 2 weeks. You do not know if your baby is ready to come in 2 weeks or may take more than 2 weeks. So please do not wait to complete your application and link it to the arrival of your baby. By all means, absolutely submit your application without thinking much, because even after your baby arrives, you need to get your the baby's birth certificate, passport. You need those two main documents in order to complete your application. You will not be able to complete your application. Of course, what you can do is, as part of your application, you can write or you can add a letter of explanation stating that you are expecting your baby to come in 2 weeks and that you will be adding a baby as part of your application. So after you've submitted your PR application, once your baby is born, by all means, inform IRCC using the web form that your baby is here and that you would like to add your baby to the application. IRCC in turn will then send you an application kit, including some forms, will ask you to pay the fee and provide those documents, mainly the birth certificate of the baby and the medicals. You will have to pay the fee of $230. You will then $225, sorry. And you will then be able to add your baby to your application. That's basically it. Waiting at 499 general draws, do you think there would be a chance for me next year? Well, I absolutely feel and think and speculate and predict and everything else that goes with it that 490s are safe, in my opinion. Because if I just, I've closed that. Let me open that again. So we have it here. So I absolutely feel that this, let me sort of take this out, that this pool is very, very simple. So obviously there's 1,000 people have been cleared. This number keeps replenishing because of the people who keep getting nominations. So this is not a problem. Further, if you see the number of people in the pool between 501 to 600 is 4,433 only. One or two draws can absolutely clear it. Now, as we came to the end of this year, IRCC had to slow down. They just cannot continue going with the numbers that they were going, right? I mean, they were like just issuing so many invitations. As I said, they've already issued more than 107,000 invitations. That is a lot of invitations, considering the amount of quotas that they actually have available. So with these number of invitations, if they're going to continue going, they obviously were in trouble with that. As we start next year, 2024, they would then have a new set or new quotas of ITAs. And I absolutely anticipate that the general draws will resume to a bigger numbers. Let's say even if they are to conduct 2 draws of 3,500 each, right, for general draws, that will clear off all the 500s and probably will already, with 2 draws of 3,500, they will already come into the 490s. So with that said, your 499 absolutely is safe. Rather, everybody at 490s, in my opinion, is pretty safe. You should all get cleared out. Worst case March and best case February, all 490s should get cleared out. Of course, I am saying that on the basis that IRCC will continue with the draws because IRCC, right, what they do with the draws. That is number one. And number two, that they would conduct the general draws. I feel as we go into the next year, the category draws will get spread out. They will not conduct draws like what they did this week, one after another, four draws, 4 days in a week. I don't expect this kind of a draw. On the contrary, I expect more spread out categories of the draw. And with that, the general draws will also become pretty common. Keep in mind that 50% of the invitations will still go to general draws, 50%. So if they will issue, let's say 100,000, 110,000 invitations next year, they will still issue about 60,000 invitations to the regular general draw. And only the other 60,000 will probably go to the category-based draws or divided. The number of split could even be 60-40 in the favor of general draw. So all is not lost as far as general draws is concerned, at least in my opinion, or from the way that I have been reading news articles, updates, or the numbers the way they are projected. So yeah, you should be fine. My spouse is non-accompanying on PR application, living in Canada with me on open work permit. My postgraduate work permit expiring in Jan. Am I eligible to apply for extension for both of us? Wife plan to visit India. Again, my spouse is non-accompanying on my PR application, living in Canada with me on open work permit. My postgraduate is work permit and expiring. No, you cannot. So the minute you have said your spouse is not accompanying you in your PR application, while you are eligible to apply for bridge open work permit, you cannot apply for an open work permit for your spouse. Actually, technically, if you go by the law, you can. Technically, by the law, if you apply for your bridge open work permit, I was wrong there, you can apply for your wife's open work permit because your wife's open work permit and your bridge open work permit. So your wife's open work permit is linked to your open work permit or your temporary residence status in Canada. Even if you're applying for bridge open work permit, which is on the basis of your PR. So it can get a bit confusing. So let me start. You're applying for PR, that gives you the eligibility to apply for bridge open work permit. Because you now have a status, valid status as a worker in Canada, on that basis, your wife can apply for an open work permit. So you can absolutely do that. You may have a difficulty explaining why is your wife unaccompanying, but you are applying for an open work permit. So that could be a possible glitch here. But technicality and as per the law, you can absolutely apply. I am short of 47 days to complete required work experience. I will complete hours by end of January. Should I accept it or decline it? I have 7th Feb to accept or decline. Now, again, this is another very, very frequently asked question by a lot of people. Well, the system, IRCC's express entry system is such that it gives you points for your work experience 1 month before you actually complete your work experience. And that is primarily because the work experience information you enter is as per the month and year. And that's the reason the system allots you the points earlier. It is not you who's entering wrong information. It is the system which is giving you the ITA earlier. So I know a lot of people create this confusion, and a lot of agents and consultants who are not very well aware are also creating this confusion by saying decline this ITA, that you should not continue, which is wrong. Why? Because you are not the one who is misrepresenting. You are not the one who is giving IRCC wrong information. It is the system which is calculating your work experience incorrectly. So therefore, as far as you are concerned, your responsibility is concerned, you should submit. When I say submit, it does not mean express entry profile. When I say submit, it means submitting your PR application with all your documentation and by paying the fee. So you should submit your application only after completing the legal and the valid work experience that you're claiming points for, regardless of when you received your ITA, because receiving an ITA was not in your hands. You entered the correct information, you got the ITA. Now that you have the ITA, you are short on the work experience days. Make sure you complete that period of work, and after completing that period of work, you submit your application and you're absolutely fine. Again, I have handled hundreds of these applications. We've lost count with these issues, and it's not a problem because you are not the one at wrong or fault. It's the way the system is, and you should submit the application only after completing that period of work. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, we have a lot of questions to cover. We're going to go very fast from here on. I have exactly 10 minutes to go. All right. If PCC hasn't arrived yet, does providing an explanation letter of PCC application proof helps out in getting an extension from submission of PCC from IRCC under R10 check. Okay, so your question is, can you apply for PCC even if you do not, no. So your question is, can you apply for PR even if you do not have the PCC at this point of time? The answer is yes. And this is the case with a lot of you out there who are struggling because they want to apply for Bridge Open Work Permit, who are struggling because they have to make the application submission, but cannot because you haven't received your PCC. So the answer to your question is yes. Please submit your application along with a detailed letter of explanation for your PCC. So in the placeholder where it asks for PCC, upload an explanation letter stating you have applied for the police clearance, you haven't received it because of the delayed processing times, and that you request for an extension to provide this police clearance, and that you will upload it using the web form. As part of this explanation, please, you must, it's a mandatory requirement, you must add the proof that you have applied for police clearance, and that would also include the receipt of the money that you have paid, the snapshot or the screenshot of the portal which shows what is the status of your police clearance application. But yes, absolutely you can do it, but you must also provide this explanation. Thank you for the super sticker, Yash, appreciate it. Do you think a person should travel to India due to personal emergency, but a work permit is expiring in Feb 2024? Well, if it's an emergency, then you travel, right? I mean, it all depends upon you. As long as your work permit is valid at the time you're returning back and you have a valid TRV, you will be able to return back. But after you have traveled out of Canada and your work permit expires and your TRV expires, then it's a problem. But if you have an emergency and you need to travel, by all means travel. You just need to have a valid visa to return back to Canada. That's the only condition. Nothing there. Abhi says, spouse mark sheets are duplicate, have not claimed her education points or rest. Do I need to provide FIR or LOE needed? If you haven't claimed points for your spouse's education, you don't even need to provide any documentation. You certainly don't need any FIR for that. My primary NOC code has to be STEM since it's not more than 6 months yet. And I have started in May as a student and applied for postgraduate work permit in September, 5 years of foreign experience. If you wish to be, this is a good question, and I'm sure it bothers a lot of people. If you wish to be considered in a category-based draw, your NOC code in the occupation, which is listed in the priority occupation, need not be the primary NOC code. I will say it one more time. Your primary NOC code has to be the one in which you have the most amount of work experience. This is applicable to the federal skilled worker. If you have 6 months of work experience in a NOC code within the last 3 months, which is a priority occupation, STEM, healthcare, transport, agriculture, any of these, if your NOC code is such and you have 6 months of work experience, it does not have to be your primary NOC code. As long as you have listed the work experience with this NOC code and the work period is within the last 3 years and it is for 6 months, you will still get invited. It doesn't have to be a primary NOC code. I hope that clarifies and helps. Current CRS 488 from IT field, can I get OWWCO? I have no idea what does OWWCO means, but if you're looking to get invited, then please do check individual provincial nominee programs and their streams to see if your NOC code is included and if you will get invited. No question there, sorry. Will STEM remain as a category going into 2024? My score will increase to 481 as of 1st of Jan, so hoping for STEM draws to continue. In my opinion, all the categories that have been identified, at least for the next few months in the 2024, they will continue. I do not anticipate any changes to the categories at this point of time. There may be some NOC codes which may be removed or added within those categories. But by and large, the broad categories, in my opinion, at this point of time, they will continue at least for the first quarter or later. There would be a parliamentary report by February, which will indicate on what basis did IRCC choose these categories and what they will do to keep these categories, what is the data behind it, etc. But at this point of time, I do not anticipate these categories to change. In my opinion, they will remain the way they are at this point of time. Can spouse open work permit be issued based on study permit? Can be extended once PGWP is issued post studies? I mean, you know, this is where you need to use your punctuation to explain. So if you are on a study permit, your spouse can apply for a work permit. If you apply for postgraduate work permit, also your spouse can apply for an open work permit, provided you are working at that point of time and you provide an employment letter with job description and the most 3 recent pay stubs. I received an ITA, some problem with one experience letter. Company is not ready to issue a new one. This experience doesn't affect the score. Is that okay to delete this? Manager is not ready to give the letter, but the coworker is ready. Well, for any period of work that you do not have to claim points or do not wish to claim points for, by all means, please delete it from your work experience. You may mention it in your personal history, and you can add a letter of explanation, and you do not need any documentation for that period of work. Hey, because it's not in the work history, system will not even prompt you for documents for that. Okay, a lot of these, but there is no questions here. ICICI Bank won't give bank reference letter. Can I use account statement for my PR application? Any important things to remember? I don't know what you are asking me. So when you say bank reference letter, are you referring to the employment reference letter? Are you referring to the proof of funds letter? For proof of funds, you need balance confirmation and 6-month statement. For employment, you need employment reference letter, which lists down your job description, salary, working hours, period of work, job title, your name. If you cannot get it from your employer, you can ask your manager or supervisor to do it. I've explained that a bit earlier as well. I got my PR confirmation mail. I'm an open work permit. However, I got LMIA from my employer, which helped me get my PR. My question is, can I leave my job or wait for my COPR? Well, it's entirely up to you. You are an open work permit holder. So as you are an open work permit holder, by all means, you can leave your job, work for any employer you want. There is no problem. Once you become a PR, you obviously can do whatever you wish to do. You don't want to work, you don't have to work. You can leave the job. You can work for a different employer. There is no problem at all. By all means, change the job if you want to. No issues. I have completed my 2 years of work experience on STEM NOC in March. For STEM, they say the experience needs to be within 3 years. Am I eligible in STEM draw as my 3 years will be coming to my end? For STEM, they need 6 months of work experience within the last 3 years. So as long as you have 6 months of work experience within the last 3 years, you're good to go. My friend received invitation. She applied for PCC, planning to visit India. Can you advise if she should visit? As I explained, if it is from a country which is not your country of residence, your police clearance should be applied after you have left that country. That is what the requirement is. Or if you are visiting that country, then the good thing would be to apply for your PR application before you visit that country. Then you can visit that country and you don't need the PCC again. I applied for PR months ago without biometrics. Now with biometrics, should I update PR application? Any system glitches recommended? If you have completed, or rather if you have applied for your PR and you did not give your biometrics, then IRCC will ask you for biometrics for your PR application. Until then, you do not have to do anything. Just wait for IRCC to ask you for it. Can the 6 months of 3 years of STEM can also be during study period? Nope. Your work during your study is not eligible for express entry. You can only have your 3 years of work experience after you applied for postgraduate work permit. So you're asking about STEM. Any 6 months of work experience within the last 3 years is eligible, but that 6 months cannot be while you were studying in Canada. It cannot be on a study permit. Ontario wastewater certificate, which gives you 50 points in certificate of qualification. Well, it's a very frequently asked question about this wastewater certificate. In my opinion, you do not get points for the wastewater certificate of qualification. We've already seen a lot of applications being refused. I know the IRCC's website, not the ministerial instructions, not the law. The website states that you may not have work experience in this particular NOC code, but in my opinion, you do not get points for certificate of qualification for this particular occupation if you haven't been working there already. Okay, last few questions. Sorry, proof of fund, what option do I have? Well, for proof of funds, you need a letter from the bank which states what your balance confirmation is, how much money you have in the account, and your last 6 months bank statement. If there is any money that has come into your account within the last 6 months, then you also need to provide proof or source of where the funds have come from. Right, last question before I scoot off. Do I need to show educational documents for spouse open work permit while doing flag polling? Well, your spouse, who is the applicant, does not need to show any educational documents. When you're applying for spouse open work permit, you need your spouse is the main spouse who is in Canada, their study permit or their work permit. Then you need their documentation in terms of their working, then their employment document, the job description, their 3 recent pay stubs. You need your marriage certificate, you need your passport, their passport, any proof of relationship that might help. And this is basically all that you need. All right, please guys, do not take on any more super chats. I cannot take it. I'm waiting for my PCC from India and postgraduate work permit is expiring on 6 Jan. Can I apply for PR with proof of PCC application and later update PCC? Yes, you can. I've just explained that to you earlier. By all means, you can do that. Guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I wish you all the very best. I hope this Christmas is extremely joyous and extremely merry for you. Wish you a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year if I don't see you, but I'm sure I will see you next week when we will talk about this whole year as it has happened and what the next year may bring for us. Thank you and wish you all the best.